Welcome to the NWR Virtual Small Caps Investor Conference, August 2020. We're joined by Oventus. Oventus is a Brisbane-based medical device company that is commercialising a unique treatment platform for sleep apnea and snoring. The company has a collaborative sleep physician dental strategy that streamlines patients' access to treatment. The Oventus lab model incorporates digital technology via intraoral scanning to achieve operational efficiencies, accuracy, and ultimately patient outcomes. We'll soon hand over to Managing Director and CEO, Dr. Chris Hart. Chris is the founder of Oventus Medical and inventor of the O2 vent design concept. Chris has overseen the launch of the O2 vent to patients and through clinicians and heads the management team as the company rolls out the Oventus sleep treatment platform with a focus on North America. Chris is also heavily involved with training and presenting to the dental and sleep sector. Over to you, Chris.
Great, thanks, Laura, and thanks everyone for tuning in. This is a reasonably short presentation, so I'll move fairly quickly. I will give you an overview of obstructive sleep apnea. I'll look at the market opportunity, talk about our lab business model, and I guess the changes that have come about due to the recent pandemic and the opportunities that have presented themselves. So obstructive sleep apnea, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that have heard this before, but is when you stop breathing or slow down breathing multiple times at night. It contributes to some very severe long-term issues in terms of cardiac issues, some mental issues, depression, diabetes, obesity. So it has some long-term ramifications, and it can shorten life significantly for some people as well. In terms of lifestyle, daytime somnolence, increased risk of accident, the Medicare economic cost is in the billions of dollars. I think it's something like $26 billion in Australia alone. And it happens when your airway collapses while you sleep. So snoring is a sign of it. And as you breathe in, you start snoring, and eventually you get and you stop breathing. And it's this lack of oxygen that leads to all these downstream effects in terms of your heart, your brain, your lungs, all of your sensitive organs, your general feeling of well-being during the day and productivity. CPAP is the standard of care, and you can see the mask there, get strapped on, pump air into your face. We know that it works. The issue is that it's not well tolerated. If you look at 100 patients diagnosed with sleep apnea, 35 will refuse CPAP, 65 will try it, and out of the 65 that try it, 50 will take it home within a year. 25 of them have abandoned therapy. So the long-term compliance isn't great, and it's a fairly inconvenient and obtrusive type of treatment as well. One of the main reasons CPAP often isn't adhered to, and the same reason that a standard mouth guard that brings the jaw forward doesn't work, as nasal obstruction. So a blocked nose needs more pressure, usually end up on a full face mask. That needs higher pressure again, leaks and discomfort, tightening of straps, more pressure required, patient throws the mask off. In terms of an oral appliance, a mouth guard generally brings the jaw forward to stop the tongue flopping back, because you're going to have an obstruction in the nose, the soft palate, the side of the throat of the tongue can flop back. So bringing the jaw forward stops the tongue from flopping back, but it doesn't deal with the upper levels of obstruction. If you get nasal obstruction, someone wearing a mouth guard, they'll switch the mouth breathing, traction on the mandible fails and treatment fails. So the nose is pretty key. It's the main anatomic reason why patients fail to adhere to CPAP and why standard mouth guards don't always work. So what we did is we put a second nose into an oral appliance. I developed it for myself. The apnea couldn't tolerate CPAP, and mouth guards weren't effective enough. So it's portable, it's efficacious. For 80% of patients, you can get a similar treatment outcome or a comparable treatment outcome to CPAP. It fits in your pocket. It's probably the first real innovation in many years in the field. The way that it works is that if the nose obstructs or the soft palate at the back of your throat, the little punching bag flops back, the air drops down to the next level and comes in through the second nose. That's an enclosed airway, so it bypasses the nose, the soft palate, it goes around the tongue, we stabilise the jaw position, and the air just continues to flow, oxygen levels stabilise, and ventilation normalises. We've seen that across thousands of epochs in our clinical studies. In terms of our clinical studies, we did a randomised crossover trial with a device without an airway in it and our device with it in there. And in that study, we found that the success rate and efficacy increased to 20% in patients who normally wouldn't respond to oral appliance therapy. We then ran another study where we used our X-bend valve, so that little flapper valve there. We get the benefit of a low resistance pathway as we breathe in, and you can see that flap opens up. As you breathe out, the flap closes, and the resistance in that valve then leads to a pressure gradient building up, and that inflates the airway. So the patient's mouth breathing that normally would have been the problem becomes the treatment itself. So we're turning the patient's breathing into the CPAP, and that's increased the success rate to about 80% by salvaging those patients who ordinarily wouldn't respond to therapy. We're getting close to submitting a 510K application with the FDA in the US. It's available in the rest of the world. The market, it's a very large market, over $2 billion for Oventus. There are 6 million patients who've been diagnosed with sleep apnea out of over 30 million, and about 3 million of them are outside of care at the moment. And if we sold the device, just the device sale alone on a wholesale level is a $2.4 billion opportunity. It's a massive market, growing very quickly, 16% CAGR predicted. So if mouthguards are out there, why haven't they been widely adopted? So in the therapeutic market of $3.5 billion US, only about 10% of that is mouthguards. There's three main reasons for that. One is they don't always work. We've increased the success rate from 56% up to 80%, so we've dealt with that objection. The complex patient journey and competing economic imperatives are the other two. So if you say to a sleep doc, why don't you do more mouthguards? They say, well, I refer the patient to the dentist. The dentist charges them $2,000 or $3,000 and never see them again. And if you say to the dentist, why don't you do more sleep? They'll say, well, if I refer the patient to the sleep physician, I'll put them on CPAP and I'll never see them again. So what we've done is we've developed a lab-in-lab program which encourages collaboration between sleep physicians and dentists. It allows them to share the patient management and the economics outcome of that patient management as well. We basically don't need a dental clinic for this device. We can put a little wand scanner. If you see in that middle photo, I need to get a bigger shot of this, but that little wand in the bottom left-hand corner of the middle photo was a scanner that we wave inside the patient's mouth that records the patient's dentition. The data gets sent to Brisbane. We design it in Brisbane, it gets printed stateside, and then we ship it direct to the clinic or to the patient. By putting that scanner into the sleep physician's clinic, we've now brought the professions together that were previously siloed. We've overcome the complex patient journey and these competing economic imperatives that previously have prevented patients from receiving mouthguards, in addition to having now the most efficacious mouthguard on the market. And as I said, as effective as CPAP for over 80% of patients, our clinical studies have shown. Existing CPT codes for reimbursement, including being funded by Medicare. So patients and clinicians can now apply straight to Medicare in the US to have the device reimbursed. Average reimbursement around about $2,400 US, and we sell the device for about $550 to $600 US. So we have now the Optima in market in the US, the Xvent still to come, Xvent in market in the rest of the world. It's a very efficient and simple solution to a complex problem. The lab-in-lab model increases revenue for the dentist and for the sleep group while treating the patient in the best possible manner they can. It's the only technology that treats the entire upper airway. And the lab-in-lab program is a collaborative framework where all the stakeholders benefit, including the patient. So we launched this concept of the lab-in-lab program in June last year. We didn't even have Optima FDA cleared at that point, and before having a cleared device, we'd signed agreements across 15 sites in the US. We've continued to negotiate and sign agreements. We started launching sites in October after we received FDA clearance. By the end of December, we'd generated our first revenue from that program. By the end of March, we're starting to ramp revenues. So the contracts we signed across 57 states, and there are minimum quotas of 20 devices each in 49 of those sites, and 10 units each in a further 8. So if those sites do their minimum quotas, we've got $13.2 million of annualized revenue. The ones that we've already launched is around about $5.3 million of annualized revenue. And we also have 11 sites in the implementation site and phase, and another 24 sites to launch after that. So we have 22 at the moment that have been launched. Having said that, we were interrupted by COVID, and we had to switch to telehealth and virtual launches for a period there, but we're bringing those sites back online now, and that's progressing very well and very quickly, and patient flow and device orders are starting to rebuild. So as I said, we were interrupted by COVID, a bit of a heat map there. Most of our sites were closed down in April and May. We got about half of them, or nearly half of them, back up in July. Reduced patient flow across those sites, but we still managed to increase sales in July compared to our pre-COVID ramp. The reason being is that we switched pretty quickly to telehealth. So while people were home sheltering, we were still able to engage with patients online. We changed our workflows, they became much more efficient, and our conversion rates actually increased significantly when we implemented telehealth. And we're riding shotgun now with the sleep physicians who also have embraced telehealth. And there are regulatory and reimbursement changes in the US that make it quite favorable now to operate remotely. So we're very excited about that opportunity that presented itself as a result of COVID-19. We're bringing previously launched sites back online. We're continuing to launch sites in the September quarter, and we have a very full implementation calendar through the end of calendar 2020 and beyond. We have an abundance of contracts that have been signed, plus I think over $70 million at minimum quotas worth of deal flow yet to come online in terms of finalising those agreements. So enormous demand for the technology and for the business model. As I said, we were starting to ramp. We launched our first sites in October, first sales generated in December, and we're increasing. We're looking to double revenue in the March quarter. We ended up with a 60% increase in revenue after being truncated by COVID-19. Pretty much difficult to treat patients in April. Everything was shut down. By May, we'd launched telehealth, and we even did a couple of home care sites. And then by June, we're starting to see some scans come through again and devices being ordered and sold, and then we increased those the rate of device orders and sales again in July to beyond COVID levels, and we think we're back on track in terms of the launch trajectory. We've probably lost about 60 days worth of revenue build, but we've continued to sign contracts, launch sites remotely, and engage with patients via telehealth virtually as well. So we're very excited about the opportunity that has presented itself and the efficiencies that have been driven out of what was a fairly challenging situation. These blue states are where we currently operate lab in lab. The yellow states are where we go next. As I said, there's enormous demand, 57 sites contracted, worth about 13 million in revenue. Other sites in negotiation that we have visibility on volumes around about $70 million. We'll continue to sign, negotiate and finalise agreements and launch sites as we go through the September quarter and into the back end of the year and beyond. So an enormous opportunity there has presented itself. In terms of agreements, people ask, how are you going with the larger groups? We have got some large regional groups contracted in Aeroflow, which is a large, fast-growing regional out of the southeast of the US. They've also subcontracted to Regional Diagnostics, which is another regional group. They intend to subcontract and model out their referral base across the country. So as a conglomerate, it represents a national opportunity for us. Ontario Sleep in Canada is also a subsidiary of a national in Canada, the first of a number of agreements we're looking to finalise with them, with 8 locations initially, and then Kerrika Health, another national in Canada with 26 sites. We're launching the first sites at them at the moment. We've launched 2 of the Aeroflow sites who are now scheduling scan appointments, and 2 of the Kerrika sites are scheduling scans, with a number of them behind them doing telehealth as well, starting to build books for opening through the September quarter and into the end of the year. So as I said, we have a very full launch calendar. The implementation program is much more efficient and our conversion rates are much higher as a result of the workflows that were implemented in response to COVID-19. So we have had significant cost savings measures. We reduced our overhead by about 30%, and that remains low as we move forward. We've reduced our cash burn. The revenue build has recovered, and we're past where we were pre-COVID. And we're tracking very well. We're excited about where we're tracking. That momentum is building again, patient flows returning. As I said, enormous demand for the Lab and Lab program. We continue to launch sites and finalise contracts. The virtual phone consultations have been a huge win for us, increasing conversion rates, reducing cost and reducing the lead time to revenue. And after recent capital raising, very strong balance sheet to continue to grow the business as we trade out of COVID-19 and into the back end of the calendar year and into financial year 2021. Great board, 3 US non-executive directors, and then Suma Clayman and Mel Bridges, who many of you know. Very appreciative of their support. It's like an extension of the executive team, so we're really lucky to have them all on board. Just the corporate slide now. We've had some ups and downs in terms of the share price, but I think when you look at where we came from with the genesis of a new business model and a unique product in June, July through to September last year, to have launched these clinics through the middle of COVID, to have come back from our virtual shutdown to now have surpassed where we were and accelerating into the back end of the quarter in the calendar year. I think we have a very exciting quarter and year ahead of us. So, we're all set to go, all the pieces of the puzzle in place, and we'll continue to execute on the plan as we have been. And of course, our patients, we can't get anywhere without patients, and we've had amazing feedback from patients. We're treating firefighters as first responders in Canada as COVID broke. Some wonderful testimonials there. And in fact, the unions in Canada and the insurers in Canada have now gotten behind the device for first responders in Canada. So thank you to those people contributing there, and thanks always to our patients for their feedback. And happy to open up for any questions.
Thanks, Chris, for that very informative presentation. Some questions have come through in the last couple of minutes, actually. You have a minimum 20 sales per site. How is this compared with CPAP sold by that site per month?
So depending on the site, we look at their patient flow and we look to see if they can get a minimum of 20 based on their patient flow. All the sites are different. If you look at the literature, if they're doing, say, 100 CPAP or 100 diagnostics a month, 35 will refuse CPAP out of hand. Out of the 65 that trial CPAP, 15 of them won't make it through 90 days. So, you know, for every 50 CPAP sold, there are probably 50 patients within 90 days that are outside of care. When we look at the patient flow, we take a fairly conservative view. And there is a ramp time as well. It's hard to determine what it is in COVID, but we're really pleased with the way that patient flows improved, conversion rates have improved trading out of COVID. And we think, you know, we should be scaling some good units in the not too distant future.
What's your best performing site in the US in terms of monthly unit sales numbers, and how long perhaps did it take to get to the 20 units there?
So before COVID broke, we had several sites trending towards the 20. I think one had just gotten there and a few had opened at that rate, and then they were shut down, unfortunately. On the road back, there are 3 strong sites in the US at the moment and 3 really strong sites in Canada. Internally, you know, we made an assumption that it might be a 5, 10, 15, 20 progression back. That was a guess, and it's early days. That looks like it might be right, but the reality is we don't really know. What we do know is that we have 22 sites there with an abundance of patients and another 20 or 30 behind that we can work with, plus a deal funnel that we can continue to grow the business. So, you know, as we open up again, I think we'll start to see those units really ramp, and the lead time to revenue now is a lot shorter than what it was pre-COVID as a result of the implementation of telehealth.
A couple of questions around that deal funnel or projected revenue figure of 70 million. What criteria have you used to include opportunities in that, and how long do you think it will take to reach the $70 million revenue figure?
Well, if you look at the deal funnel, we look at the sites that we have visibility on their units. So there's, you know, well over 100 groups that we're in discussions and negotiations with. We don't have visibility on all of those sites. In the sites where we do have, we apply the minimum quotas for the device sale and also a service fee that we charge to facilitate the collaboration. So that's how we've come up with that value on the ones where we have visibility. Historically, we've been launching about 3 sites a month, sometimes 4 a month, depending on whether there's holidays or interruptions. So we've launched 22 now. If we keep going at that rate, we should be, you know, looking pretty good to get another 20 or 30 up, you know, by mid next year. And then if you look at lead times to revenue, which we're unsure about at this point, it could be 4, 5, 6 months. I'd say by mid to back end of next year, if we get those sites up and we're trending to minimum quotas, all things being equal, then the revenue build should look pretty good. You know, without trying to forecast anything because they're very uncertain times, but there is certainly more than enough deal flow and contracted sites to adapt to whatever challenges arise, as we have even in this situation we had complete shutdown for 2 months.
Can you maybe give us a little bit more context around the IP protection for Oventus as well? So break it down a little bit more for us.
We have 7 families of patents. The first family is approved globally. We also have follow-on patents in national phase and provisional phase, and they focus around the technology, the concept of the airway, as well as certain iterations of the designs, as well as the explant valves, some sensor technology, and the CPAP interface as well, which we haven't brought to market yet. We also have IP insurance, freedom to operate and protection. So we have a very, very deep moat of IP protection on the technology.
On that CPAP note, a question just came through. Are you seeing a competitive response from the CPAP guys?
So I think, you know, we're not even a minnow yet. So, you know, we're not really upsetting the 23. And in reality, we're here treating patients that otherwise can't tolerate or won't accept CPAP. So we see it actually as an adjunct therapy, and that we're running alongside them, helping treat the millions of patients that are outside of care. So if a patient is using CPAP, they should keep using it. At the moment, we're looking to treat 3 million patients that can't tolerate CPAP, and then the many hundreds of thousands, if not millions more, that are being diagnosed with refusal.
Thank you for joining us, Chris, all the way from US, I believe, today.
Yeah, South Orange County, San Juan Capistrano. Our office is in Irvine, in the US. We have a very small team here in a glass box at WeWork. But
nice. It sounds a lot nicer than Melbourne today.
Yeah, it's lovely here at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. We'll speak to you soon.
Cheers.